This morning we're going down to Quitman, Texas to cut down a large post oak tree. This tree has several problems. It's got a big cattle panel that's embedded in the trunk of the tree, a lot of rotten limbs, and the tree is leaning toward a building. We're going to have to convince it to fall the other way. My neighbor Mark from up the street is going with us to help out today. He needs some firewood, so after we load the log, we'll throw a little firewood on the trailer for him before we bring the log back. Stay with us. Alright, we're going to get after it. Cut this 34-inch diameter post oak down. It's dead, obviously died of canker disease from the looks of it. This arrow you're seeing is, in the orange paint on the tree, is marking a heavy-duty steel cattle panel that is embedded in this tree. Nailed to it years ago, and now the tree's kind of grown over it. We're going to have to avoid it this whole time we're cutting this tree, because it sure can ruin a chainsaw. This tree's dead, and it's already got pretty hard. Notice the output on the chainsaw. Even though the chain is very sharp, a new chain on there, we're basically ejecting sawdust out of the tree. If we were doing a green tree that was soft, you'd see chips flying out there instead of dust. It's just one of those things. When a tree dies, it gets harder to cut. Why it's taking longer. No, it only needs to be 80% of the face. If you cut it too far back there, Mark, then the tree can break loose on you. It can tilt one side or the other and break. So you won't leave enough meat to guide and hold the tree.
I'm not sure what 80% you're talking about.
Okay, stand right in front of the tree where I made the cut. Eyeball it. 100% will be totally wide. The cut needs to be 80% of that. Also, these two cuts need to come right together.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna cut a little more here.
And then you cut it, and then you wedge it, and you pound the wedge in to try to get it to go that way, huh?
Well, you're winching the wedge.
Yeah.
There we go.
What I'm doing now is a bore cut into the center of the tree. And I'm doing that so that when this tree falls over, that those center fibers won't pull out and damage the tree. Remember, we're wanting to make big slab tables out of this tree, so I don't want any fibers pulled out of it that'll create holes in our slabs. What I have found is a piece of that heavy-duty steel paneling I have cut through with my chainsaw. So it's probably knocked one side of my teeth off on my bar, so I need to go get a new chain. It's probably why I'm taking so long to get through this dull chain.
It's called a bore cut. I was cutting that middle of the tree fibers loose so it wouldn't pull it out.
You just put that blade in there a little bit.
Upside down and try to cut a little of it loose, because when I cut this way, I do not want to cut. I want to leave about 3 or 4 inches of wood to guide the tree. I want to leave 3 or 4 inches of wood on the cut to guide the tree. If I cut any more, it's a chance that it will cut and it'll break one way or the other. So what I was doing is taking the center wood out so that when you start to pull, it'll be weaker when I get to that point.
Yeah, I got it.
All right, we're ready.
What we're doing here is we're tightening the cable
Hold it.
attached to the tree so that we can begin the back cut on it. The reason the cable is on the tree, notice the tree is leaning to the right. There is a building back there. So we've got a safety cable on it to make sure it falls the right way. We're going to convince it a little with a 12,000-pound winch attached.
All right, hold it right there. It's rotten. It's starting to crack.
What I keep examining here is I want to make sure my chainsaw bar is going through the tree parallel to the face cut. I don't want it cutting one side more than the other, so I keep looking around the tree to make sure the cut on this side equals the cut on the other side. What I'm doing now is I'm getting some wedges to put in this tree. You need to install them just as soon as you got clearance from your chainsaw bar to get them in the tree. And the reason for this, remember there's a building behind this thing. What if that cable that's pulling the tree away breaks? I don't want any possibility that this tree is going to start leaning backwards and fall into that building. So we're going to start early trying to convince it to fall away from the building toward that trailer down there. We will keep these wedges following our chainsaw in and trying to keep any slack out of the tree so they cannot lean back. What I'm doing here is I'm using multiple wedges spread across the face of this large tree. And then I'm walking them in with a hammer, consecutively hitting them. I get the end, I go back and hit them again. Don't expect a quick reaction from this. It takes nearly 1 minute from the time I hit that wedge till a shock wave goes up that tree and starts it leaning over. It's not a quick reaction. Also notice that there's a space between those yellow wedges. Sometimes you'll drive a wedge all the way into the tree, but it's not enough to make it lean and fall. So by leaving a gap between the wedges, that leaves me room to come in and use these larger wedges I have to double wedge and force the tree over more. Sometimes that's necessary, so you just have to prepare for it as you go in. What I'm doing is evening up the hinge cut so that it is cut exactly the same thickness on both sides of the tree. We're getting just about ready to fell the tree over, so those things need to be equal. Otherwise the tree will turn somewhat to the thicker one. This is where some people make a real mistake. They get chainsaw happy and they start cutting a little more, only they keep cutting too much. If you keep cutting, you lose control of the tree because you've cut through your hinge. You gotta avoid that temptation to just keep cutting when you know you've already finished getting the hinge the right thickness. What you can't tell from the angle of this shot is that that limb that's breaking off there, it threw at about 30 feet away from the camera to hit that raised metal bed. It's a problem that we run into on these dead, rotten trees. You never know how far it's going to throw these old rotten limbs.
Whew.
I feel a whole lot better because I was afraid that all these winds we've had the last few days.
Yeah. Well, that thing leaning back up. One thing that's good though, of course you never know this till after it's off the stump.
Right.
It's actually pretty solid on the stump. I was worried about a tree that old having a rotten spot in the middle, but it's,
It just died last year.
yeah. Well, that doesn't mean it don't have a rotten spot. It can be alive and have a rotten spot. Yes, take it off.
That's true. That is true.
Just be real careful in case one of them limbs breaks and rolls that tree on top of you.
That's one hell of a tree. You get good at what you do, George.
Practice. Been doing this for a while. Not that you can anticipate what a dang dead tree's going to do all the time. Sometimes they surprise you. You got red clay here.
Oh yeah. Lots of iron in the soil. That's why I can't really grow anything in the garden. I'm gonna have to. It's too many rocks. It's all just big rocks,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna have to get the rocks out of there.
I understand.
But I have a plan for that.
All right.
Well, the tree's off the stump, but it's not down yet. This is what we call a widowmaker. It is resting on the limbs. Anybody walking up from ground level and trying to cut those limbs will liable to get that tree rolled over on top of them. So we're going to proceed from the top to cut the limbs off as much as we can, but leaving the tree stable. Then we're going to hook our winch to it and roll the tree over till it's down on the ground and safe for us to work on, finish the limbing.
No. My son almost cut his wife's arm off with a chainsaw.
I read something the other day that as long as I've been doing chainsaws my whole life, I've read something that I had never seen before. It made so much sense. I don't know why I didn't recognize it before. Did you know if you go out in your shop, you know, and you got band saws and you got table saws and you got all these equipment with sharp edges.
Right.
A chainsaw is the only tool, one, it's the number one more accidents are caused by chainsaw than any other tool you got. Okay. And one of the reasons is chainsaw is the only tool you've got that all the cutting edge is totally exposed. Oh, remember, everything else is pretty well shielded and blocked. So that you can't get in it real bad.
Right.
Shoot, chainsaw and cut right through you.
Well, my son was cutting down a tree in the backyard, cutting a limb off of it, and his wife was helping him. And he's no better with a chainsaw than I am. He shouldn't have been touching one. But so the limb fell off, and the chainsaw went and hit her right in the arm right there.
Oh man, and of course it cut tendons and everything probably.
They had to, surgery and everything to put it on.
I only cut a little bit of my little channel, just a little bit of meat. Didn't get much, but it just nicked me.
That's enough to wake you up.
Well, you know, if you're not experienced, I'm a big fan of wearing the helmet with the face shield and the chaps for the new people.
And I don't have any of that stuff, so.
Well, it sure does make it safer to use. And of course, it's expensive and you don't use it very often and that kind of thing.
How old are you, George?
73 since February.
You got a year on me.
Yeah? Well, but I keep doing this stuff that keeps me active. And I just doodle. I can't do it no more, but I still can do it.
I stay real active through the summer and the fall, but in the winter, there's not much to do around here, so I kind of get lazy. But
well, I'm doing these YouTube videos because I spend hours in front of a computer editing them. Hadn't helped me much because I'm setting. But I still get out and do stuff pretty regularly.
Well, it keeps us going, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you about, we come down here, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And when you dozed that tank out and you had all those sweet gum up there.
Yep.
We badly in our wood turning club need some sweet gum bowl blanks. You got any sweet gum trees that's maybe this big or bigger that?
You're welcome to come out here and look. We'll ride around in the buggy here in a little while if you want to take you around the place.
Well, let's get Mark down doing safety and we can leave him and go see if.
Now, for the.
Wait a minute, you don't know. Do you know you're a timber man right here?
Yeah, I do have a timber management plan, but that helps
No, that's not what.
Okay.
That's not what.
Okay.
If you cut raw timber and turned into firewood, lumber, sawmill, whatever, for $35 a year, you can get a timber exemption with the state of Texas, and anything you buy that gets that done is tax-free.
I will have to do that. Because I have a timber management plan written by the state. They actually wrote it for me. And that helps me on property taxes, but the bees helps me on sales tax. Anything that I buy out here.
Well, that's all this does, is save you sales tax and license plates for all your trailers that you use around here.
Oh, I didn't know.
It's less than half what, they charge me less than half for this trailer with a timber certificate than they do regular trailer.
Later on in the week, so I'll call you for a little more information, then I'll get busy on that.
Well, you go to the Texas Agriculture Department. Okay. You know an ag exemption, you've heard of that? Yeah. It's the same place, only it says ag or timber.
Okay.
So you just go to the same place and click on it and fill out a form. And every 2 years you have to renew it. And you know, it's, but it saves you on sales tax and stuff.
I have measured from the trunk of the tree to where I'm putting my saw in it there, and I'm working on cutting the tree loose, a 20-foot log section of it. Takes a little while since it's such a large tree. What I'm doing here is pulling the log with one cable, and I'm hooking up a second cable because the log is trying to roll over. And I hook that snatch block back there, put tension with the second cable, and that keeps it from rolling over on me as I try to load it. After a trip home, we're gonna unload this log back in the back where it's gonna stay until we can get to it with a chainsaw mill. The log's too heavy to move again with the equipment I've got, so we're dropping it right where we intend to cut it up with a chainsaw mill. Hopefully this video gave you some insight to how dangerous some of these old rotten trees can be. And then you add metal in a tree like this one had, they're extremely dangerous, so be careful.